Hi everyone, Sandman here. Today's video is brought to you by a donation from Peter, and he said that he was just sending me an extra donation, so I decided to make this video. So I'll dedicate this video to him as well. Today I came back from a working vacation in the United States. I was out doing a test run for a new YouTube channel that's all about traveling your own way. And while I was down there in Pennsylvania, I unexpectedly found myself in the heart of Amish Country. And at one point I was actually stuck behind a traffic jam of roughly 6 to 7 horse-drawn carriages, all attempting to make a right turn. It was one of the most surreal experiences that I've had in a really long time. And I immediately started observing the way that both male and female Amish relate to one another, and started to research how their society works. And also, all of the photos that you see in this video, except for the one with the 3 girls, I actually took myself. Anyways, I immediately noticed that the men and women that I saw didn't seem to mix and match all that much. And another shocking thing I saw was that many of the women also went barefoot. Talk about a society where women are literally both barefoot and pregnant. I went online and found out that their divorce rate is approaching 0%. And for the most part, they're a closed society, and even if you wanted to leave it, it would be difficult if not impossible, because you'd actually have to learn how to use technology and get an education, as most Amish people are only educated to the 8th grade level. With regards to female nature, the way I see it, women are not loyal to individual men, but instead to men that can provide them with the best options in life at that particular time. If you take a woman's choices away, or make her choices extremely hard to make in the first place, then the vast majority of women will stay where they are in life and settle for it. Sure, there are some women that'll leave the Amish lifestyle behind, but they also have to leave their family, friends, as well as the way of life and cultural identity behind to do so. But I don't want to talk about the religious reasons why the Amish do what they do. Instead, I want to focus on the cultural stuff. As a Western culture and civilization, we've let our women run amok. And as I explored Amish country in Pennsylvania, it showed me the prime example of how the most ideal form of traditionalism works. And it's a form of traditionalism where most women have 6 or 7 children. They also wear zero makeup, beauty products, and look absolutely plain. And you can't see any body curves because of their dresses, and instead just focus on their unpainted faces. On my way back to Canada, I went into a McDonald's somewhere in Pennsylvania to get a nice coffee, and I ran into a Mennonite group and started a conversation with them. Mennonites are very similar to the Amish, but they still believe in using some forms of technology. They were on their way to Canada to visit relatives. And there were 6 of them, 3 men and 3 women. And this is my first time in my entire life that I saw 3 women out in public with no makeup on. For pretty much the first time in my life, I realized how boring and plain most women look when they simply have no makeup, jewelry, or other sexually accentuating or revealing clothing. I saw how little physical appeal women have if they don't enhance their beauty first. They typically look more plain than your grandmother, so I don't want any of you to worry about me going off and running off to become an Amish. And if anyone out there listening to this is thinking about it, forget about it. The Amish actually share a gene pool that comes from roughly 200 people that originally came from Germany, so basically your kids would be swimming in the shallow end of the gene pool. Plus you'd also have to convert to Christianity, probably learn how to speak German, and do everything by hand. And it's obviously an incredibly tough life if you don't have electricity for lighting and gasoline for transportation. But I did see many Amish homes equipped with propane tanks for home heating, so from what I gather they seem to believe in the use of fossil fuels. I also saw many of the young people wearing sunglasses. I couldn't figure out why, but many of them had them on. I can only imagine what Amish men are told about with regards to Western women. To be honest, I think the moment they hear about how high our divorce rates are, as well as how English men get ruined, they probably laugh to themselves all about it. And I can only imagine how they feel when they see our women destroying our culture. There are probably very few reasons for men to want to leave that culture, the Amish one, behind. And I wonder to what degree gynocentrism functions in such places. The women obviously can't divorce the men, or it's made very difficult for them to do so, and it's hard for her to run off with another guy. Her children and chores often keep her busy all the time, and it's extremely difficult for her to leave. As I say this becomes the perfect segue for the Amish rite of passage known as rumspringa. This is supposedly when teenage and young Amish run off and take drugs and experiment with other cultures. But apparently this doesn't happen as much as the media wants us to believe. And in the end, almost 90% of Amish teenagers choose to be baptized and join the Amish church. I'd also be interested to know if more women than men leave the Amish when they become teenagers. My guess would be that more women would leave because they can more easily integrate into our society, because it's easier for them to find a beta male provider ready to give them that new lifestyle in the modern world. If that's actually the case, then there could easily be more men in the Amish community than women, leading to the value of women going up in that society. So that could still mean that the bottom 10 to 20% of their male population could be left without wives. I'm not sure if that's the case or not, but it would be certainly very interesting to figure it out. I've also included a link in the description below to something called Women's Lib Would Have a Field Day Among the Amish, and it's from the book called Rumspringa, To Be or Not to Be Amish, and here's what it says. Dave E. says that Women's Lib would have a field day among the Amish. In certain senses, Amish women are almost more esteemed than men, he explains. In the Amish culture, women are more important, more valuable than men because they raise the children, who are the future of the Amish sect, and they maintain the home, which is the locus of Amish life. However, the collective portrait of women in Amish society that emerges from interviews with Amish men, women, boys, and girls is similar to that of the pages of Family Life. Women as the objects of a reflexively misogynistic culture which treats them as weak, dumb, and in need of protection from the world. That's what the book has to say, but that's also kind of a trick. Women rule but are still treated as weak and feeble. That's how powerful gynocentrism is in our species as a whole. In a traditional society like the Amish, women appear to have no power, yet at the same time they actually do. Of course women and girls from that culture are going to say that they have no power, and of course men and boys from that culture are going to say that women have no power as well. That's the dynamic in our species that makes our two sexes tolerate each other. Most men believe they have power over humanity, but we don't actually have it. Women know that they have power over our species, but they pretend like they don't. This obviously satisfies the male ego because it makes him feel in charge and easily parted with his resources because he believes he can produce virtually limitless quantities of goods. And women in general know that they have all the power and typically laugh at men and how gullible we become when a beautiful woman walks into the room. The religion that most men worship is the illusion of male power. Most men believe they have absolute power over women in the world. And it's our own misguided faith in ourselves that leads us into this deep trouble with the opposite sex. It's the illusion that we're in control. But when we take the red pill, we become aware that we once worshipped ourselves as better than women. But now we realize that we're actually better and can finally act out on our own best interests. As men going our own way, our best choice is not to get involved in relationships at all. And it's really upsetting women out there that men are starting to use women's techniques instead of actually following the scripted behaviors that we've always seemed to follow in the past. We don't seem to fall for their dirty tricks anymore. And we understand that we have all the power, and we aren't going to hand it over to them for free. We finally understand that our place in the sexual marketplace is much higher than theirs. Most women are just gold-plated cake cars. They look like they're quality and expensive on the outside, but eventually the gold flakes off of them like a 50-year-old Oscar statue from the Academy Awards. After my experience in Amish Country, I now realize that the tragedy of modern Western women is not that women will not know what it truly feels like to be a man, which they desperately seek to become for some strange reason, but instead the real tragedy is that they will never know what it's like to be either a man nor a woman. Instead they will be some sort of chemically spayed woman-child pouting her lips on a selfie stick trying desperately to get male attention over the internet. But at least the Amish women push out half a dozen children and nurture them into adulthood. They become mothers, and at least the Amish men are masculine and hard-working and accomplish things using their hands. Most Amish also own their own land, and it's debt-free and paid off. So even in an Amish society, if a woman leaves to be with an outsider, she would most likely have to make a financial sacrifice. She would be sacrificing the financial security of marrying into her culture, and to be with a man that would almost certainly be able to afford his own property, both free and clear. But if she ended up with a man outside her culture, she would be able to divert his assets and labor for her own ends. I think that the main reason that civilization rose in the first place was because patriarchy put a muzzle on the desires of women. Ever since patriarchy started declining in Western societies, so is our culture. Another thing I noticed about the Amish is that they always seem to be traveling in groups and never alone. It kind of reminded me of the Mormon guys with the name tags walking around together to help each other or get away from temptation. Anyways, I believe that the Amish culture is safe from Western influence. If Western culture hasn't destroyed it up until now, then it probably won't. I also noticed that there was no epidemic of obesity in the Amish community, and many of the women I saw in their 20s didn't seem to have an ounce of fat on their bodies, and neither did the men. I want to end this video by saying that most men, including myself, probably don't want to go back to traditionalism, but at the same time we also don't want the status quo. I certainly don't want to live without electricity, also known as the transportation of manual labor from one point to another using copper wires. Anyways, that's all I've got to say for today, and hopefully my voice will be back to normal in a couple of days. Thanks again, Peter, for your donation. And as for everyone else, please follow me on Twitter or like me on Facebook to get tomorrow's video today. Thanks for taking your daily dose of red pills. And remember, a red pill a day keeps the divorce lawyers away. So enjoy the rest of your day, and cheers.